talking nerd talk as you do.
Yeah, that's a good sign at least, right? When you just can't stop talking to the person you're chatting with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, they seem like good guys to work with. I don't know if I'll be the right fit for them or not. It's one of those cases where like it's a small team. They're trying to find exactly the right engineer with the right level of expertise in their stack. But they are also like being serious about CI/CD and test coverage and things like that. So that is one thing I love coming on and doing as well, is just like tightening up a development pipeline. So anyway, we'll see how it goes. They seem nice.
Yay. Awesome. Yeah, no. Well, I'll definitely follow up and we'll keep you posted. But glad it was a great combo. I feel like regardless if things work out, it's always nice to like build a new connection too, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure. Let's see. So is there any intro? Do you want me to just start to
I will intro. Don't even worry.
presenting this stuff right away?
Rick, it's on you. Just no, don't worry. We're 3:02, so I might as well kick us off here. Thanks, folks, for joining us today. We have Rick, as you've already met here, demoing and showing us a really cool project that they've been working on, and they're our newest EP engineering partner. They joined us just last week. I mentioned this for other folks who have attended these events before, that, the Hackathon Onboarding Project, or the HOP, is really, meant to be, the space to be able to learn something new, experiment, try some new technologies, probably had a project or two idea on the back burner. And it's really more about the progress in that learning over, having a fully fleshed out project within a week's time. And then for you, Rick, too, like everyone on the call today is super, friendly and supportive, here to cheer you on and send over some encouraging words as well. So anyone on the call, like, definitely throw those words of encouragement in the chat as we go. And with that, I'm not going to do too much of an intro, but cool backstory to Rick's project as well. And Rick, I'll let you kick us off and share your screen when you're ready too.
Yeah, great. Hi, everybody. So for anyone who hasn't read the project brief up on commit.dev, in brief, my buddy Jeff, fantastic guy, partially / fully deaf, has struggles at the best of times hearing people in conversation. And if you sort of turn your head away as you're speaking to him, he starts to struggle, hides it pretty well a lot of the time, but with close friends he'll say, I need you to just, if you could turn back toward. So as you can imagine, COVID's been terrible for him along those lines. With everyone masked up, it takes away. He's constantly lip reading, and it takes that away completely from him if he wants to be safe and wants to be in public spaces. So it's just another way that our COVID response has failed people with disabilities. So put that on the bullet list. And we'll notice it sometimes, even just like sitting around on the back porch together, and he'll be like several feet away from everyone and sort of have to ask people to repeat, or he won't. And his sort of, that's another thing that I really started thinking about during this process, that only really occurred to me once I had started, is this idea that it's sort of on him to own or advocate for his own ability to understand what people are saying. And it's almost like his fault if he can't. And in a lot of cases, especially with strangers, it's treated like an inconvenience. Like, oh, could you, sorry, can you repeat what you just said? What I said was, it's very, and so, I just, as a goof, essentially, I wanted to be able to sit out on the back porch with him and turn on subtitles for myself. I think he'll get a laugh out of it. I think it'll be a nice thing. And if it performs okay, I'm genuinely going to use it. Like, I'm just going to leave it on the table. It's also another one of those cases where as someone who's not part of a marginalized community, you don't want to immediately make an executive decision on their behalf on the way in. So I did actually vet it with one of his best friends and also with his wife ahead of time, and just say, like, this is what I'm thinking about building for Jeff. Like, would it be something he would appreciate, and would he like it, or is it like the kind of thing where it's not? It's an overstep, and it was one of those cases where they were just like, oh yeah, no, he'll get a huge kick out of that. He'll think it's hilarious. Yes, definitely do that. So, yeah. So I experimented with a couple of different things that I wanted to explore during the process. One is I'm a big CI/CD advocate and TDD advocate, but I've never had. Let me start sharing my screen. Mm-hmm. I've got it in small mode. But I don't have actually any CI/CD pipelines that have gone forward for there we go, for a mobile application. So this is my first time building out. Can everybody see that? Shout at me if you can't. So I've never done a full CI/CD pipeline for a mobile application. So this was an opportunity to actually put together that sort of build process. That look at all those green check marks. I love them. Here's my builds. So it was a chance to put together a CI/CD pipeline in a mobile context, and that was a really fun thing. So this is a vendor called CodeMagic. So their primary service is CI/CD builds around mobile app development. So they have tools and chains in place where you end up pushing all the way out to the App Store or the Play Store. So these are some of the builds that are working now. Oh no, this last one failed. But the last development push failed or passed, so that's good. So that was one of the things that was part of the project, was setting up the application in. Let me just toss the Zoom window over there. There we go. I was actually setting up the application in CodeMagic so that I could do a full automated build process and deployment process that ended up with the application all the way on the App Store in the test flight system. So this was a build. I still have never manually pushed application code onto the App Store myself, but I've done it as part of a CI pipeline. So yeah, my build made it all the way to the test flight store. I don't have the download link yet, but that'll be kind of one of the follow-ups with you guys as we go forward. Is I'll send out a test link so you can download it if you want. I also made this. This is a good view of it. This extremely goofy. There's a good look. This extremely goofy app icon, which again, Jeff will hopefully get a kick out of, but it also actually completely matches the spirit of the project, which is a little bit goofy, but also it sort of says everything it needs to. It's very, very simple, very friendly, and very personal. It's a little face. So the whole point is, like, I'm going to subtitle myself. Another thing that I wanted to explore is I've been working on different app architectures over the last couple of years. And one I've really been pushing into is feature layer. So without going into too much detail, basically, I primarily organizes within the code base itself, within the folder structure, based on the features in the app. And then within that, you follow the more traditional clean architecture, like you separate out the data layer, the application layer, the domain layer, the presentation layer, which are the way the layers are done typically in mobile development, and Flutter in particular. There's a lot of different implementations of those architectures, but that's the one. And I realized while I was doing this, for years I've been sort of doing these feature maps this way that always end up in test descriptions. So how much time do we have for this presentation, and how much detail should I go into? Is my audio working? One moment. Again,
Yeah, you're
oh,
working.
there we go.
You can take a bit more time too, Rick, because it's only you today. So feel free to
Oh,
go into a little
amazing.
bit more detail.
Okay. Then I will, if you guys want to see this, like everybody, like give me the thumbs up if you want to actually go into this kind of detail. All right, awesome. So when I'm working on either on a new feature for an existing application or often for a new application, I'll do a feature map as part of the process. I'm going to shut down the roadmap for now because this was just sort of so I would have this close to the same document for the for my own purposes. But so SubtitleMe is the app. The feature map starts by mapping out any existing users, including the system user, because again, we want to have as complete as we can, test descriptions of the spec. Like this is intended to kind of be a way of representing the spec, and we want to cover all the different users, including the system itself. So public user, the only one that I really cared about for this one because it's a very small project, and then broke down the feature sets into navigation, settings, and speech to text. Navigation was menu and controls. And so then the goal with this kind of exercise is the things that end up being nodes, the end nodes on these branches, the leaves, are test descriptions. They're declarative, descriptive, never concrete. You never want to say it specifically returns this type of data unless that's actually part of your spec. So for the controls, subtitles on turns on the subtitles. Subtitles don't display when the subtitles are turned off and things like that. So actual like things that we can create as requirements in the spec. Same with speech to text, and then it breaks down by category, subcategory. Sometimes there are conditionals in here, but the ultimate goal is all the leaves end up being things that you can just copy and paste right into your TDD system as test descriptions. So when I was looking at, sorry, 1 second, got the Zoom thing in my way. These are the basic layers when we're doing Flutter app architecture and sort of app architecture in general. Android takes a little bit of a different tack sometimes, but these are the basic ones. This one's called river pod architecture, essentially. And this is how it separates out the layers. And then, so what I wanted to follow, because it scales really well and because it's pretty quick, it's called feature layer. And so when we do the actual, is that big enough for people to see, or should that font be bigger? Okay, cool. So when we do the actual folder structure within the lib folder, which is in Flutter, this is where all of the actual guts live. We have a features folder if we're doing feature layer. And then so I just basically mimicked the same structure that I ended up doing in this feature map with the breakdown of the features, and then all the way out into once it was a fine-grained enough feature, then you do the layers that come from the clean architecture design, or from, in this case, from riverpod architecture. So the domain layer, the presentation layer, and stuff like that within the features. One thing that does, it helps you be more modular when you move your code around, or if you ever wanted to package up one of these features or reuse it. All the feature code is sort of in one place if you want to reuse this feature as a module or a package in another project. And also including just like extracting it right out and publishing it as a separate project. It makes that kind of process a lot faster, and it scales really well, and it's a really understandable architecture pattern for somebody who's new to the project coming on. Partly because, and I only realized this once I was already working on this as part of this experiment, but if a junior dev is coming onto a project, I usually show them the feature map first, just so they understand from a very abstract, very high level, like here's what it needs to do for each of our users. And here's the categories of stuff it needs to do, and here's the actual spec of exactly what it needs to perform. here are the requirements it needs to meet. And so if a junior dev or a new dev is coming onto a project, and that's the first thing they're seeing anyway, and then they come into the code base is also organized around features first, and then the layers after that. So you'll notice I haven't actually filled in all of the requisite layers within each of these feature nodes, partly just because it's a simple little project and I didn't want to clutter it up with too much process or procedure or empty folders. But also I was sort of trying to figure out some balance between keeping it understandable and very easy to see and interpret right away without a lot of visual noise, versus and balancing that out against like having a good formalism to the structure that can be easily followed by someone who would come onto the project. So thinking about that at the same time. And then when you do feature layer, your test folder also has the folder structure is mirrored one-to-one. There's some. Has anyone done testing architecture patterns where you do the test file right next to the actual file that you're testing? Like I see you nodding your head. Yeah, like that's sort of pushed in React a bunch, I think. I did a bunch of enzyme testing on a previous project, and that's what we had. We had to test, because in that case, it's easy to find, and a lot of it is component-based tests anyway. So that it's really convenient to have the test right there. But with the way the application is built, and like the application package itself is built for production, it actually is unhelpful to have the test, any additional code alongside your core application code. So we do it this way. We have a separate test folder, which is what I used to do years ago before I got into like putting the tests next to the code. But I like I'm behind this. And then I ended up doing separate test scopes within the test folder, and then each of those just mirrors the same feature branches from up here, and then you write the tests to mirror as much as possible, to go back and mirror the code that you've written. Yeah, so let's actually run some of those. It should be fully passing right now. Let's run all the unit tests. And I'm very much used to writing and running, or running anyway, tests from the command line. But with it's another thing that I found with Flutter, their core test package is sort of ugly when it comes to the command line, because they kind of designed it to be run through an IDE. So that's another nice thing about doing this this feature branching kind of procedure when it comes to the development cycle. Is this is something you can show to just like a D level or C level staff member, hide away all the actual test descriptions, and then you just have this nice little branching of, oh yeah, here's the feature set we're working on. Here's kind of the stage. So you'll notice some of these are yellow. So that means I'm not going to go into yellow, red, green refactor. It's another testing pattern that I'd like to use. But anybody who wants to hear about yellow, red, green refactor in some future presentation or on some future day, just ask about it and we can have a conversation. But you can show that, and you can actually all be working from the same shared document even. And then like a C level staff member or a D level staff member just come in and look and say like, oh yeah, those are feature sets. Is it going to do this? Yeah, good. And then at any point during, again, because we're doing continuous integration, continuous development, at any point during the development cycle, in any meeting with anyone, you can say, oh yeah, how much are those features working or not? And you can just show them the output from that mirrors that feature branch, and you're just showing them, yeah, here are the ones that work. Here's the ones we're still working on. And then of course, it's always going to be unit tests and things like that outside it. Let's go look at it, because that's the fun part. Here we go. This is a simulated version of an iPad 12.9, because this is my iPad. So Let me actually fully restart it just to make sure we've got the freshest possible code. Yeah, so just, you never want to be too niche when you're designing, but at the same time, it was really nice with this project to get back to just leaning into being super niche with it because of all the enthusiasm that I have for it because of that, and all of the like the really targeted user experience that I'm able to build out. So this is just going to quickly do a rebuild of the code. Let me just turn those off for now. Yeah, so part of being super niche was everything being focused about that moment when I sit on the back deck with Jeff with a bunch of other folks, and I get to turn on subtitles while I'm talking to him. So this is a simulated version of my iPad. It should run on anything running iOS, I think 12 or above. But the smaller the screen, the tinier it's going to be. So that's one thing I didn't implement either. I'm still talking now because it's still doing its build. But for example, like I never implemented the settings. There we go. Here's this goofy little app. Let me know if you guys can still hear me because my audio just changed. Awesome, thank you. It hooks into the existing audio from the system. So, oh, that's new. Oh, I wonder if it doesn't like that I'm running this alongside Zoom at the same time, if it's messing with the, let me restart simulator completely. Sorry about that, guys. I wonder if it's complaining because I'm trying to use the mic and speaker resource in too many different ways at once, and it's complaining about Zoom versus the simulator. So let me start this up again, 1 sec. Get on there. Open the simulator back up. I'm going to change how I'm using my audio resources. That was probably a precursor when my audio cut out a minute ago or changed. Come on now. Load it up. Okay. And let me just give her a spin. There we go. Here it is. All right. Let's throw it on there. It'd be a shame if I went into all kinds of highfalutin technical detail about the project and didn't get to actually do the demo. Come on, big guy. Let me also switch to, I'm going to turn my Bluetooth headset off, so any audio is going to come out of the speakers. Go. So it says the build is done, should launch. Awesome. There we go. Cool. Yeah. So if I turn subtitles on, it's going to start putting subtitles up on the screen directly on my iPad. So there it is. Or this, simulated version of my iPad. Another feature that I want to put in place that turned out to be a little too tricky without directly dealing with the device itself at the device level. I'd like to be able to stop speaking. And when I start speaking again, I want that to be on the new line. When I said new line, it knows what I'm talking about. But you guys understand. Oh, what just happened there when it paused? That's another interesting thing that I found out while working on this. All these devices, like both iOS and Android, they have sort of this default timeout for speech to text. There, it just did it again. Where it's not optimized for just long form dictation. It's optimized for like hit the microphone button, like dictate a one sentence and send it as a text message, or like hit the microphone button and dictate a command to Siri or whatever, and then it shuts down again. It just isn't optimized for dictation. So they all have this automatic timeout. So actually what runs to deal with that, partly to deal with that and partly to deal with the issue of new lines originally. It's just this monitor. It's just a classic. This is a function that runs on a cycle. I think it's every 4 seconds. So one of the things it does is if subtitles are on, but it's not listening, which means that the speech to text module has turned off because it's timed out, it just starts it again. And then this was appending that new line originally, but when I tried it, the module and the device itself doesn't actually provide each chunk of text separately. It always just has this big giant buffer until it's shut off and turned on again. And that's the only time it clears its buffer. So there are a bunch of solutions that I could put in place, but I just didn't end up doing that. Yeah, so if I turn the subtitles off, that should not be listening to me now, and that's sort of it. Does anybody have questions or comments?
Just wanted to say awesome work, Rick. That was so cool seeing the demo and just how when you're like new line, it like knew what it's supposed to do. That was great. We're all losing our minds in the chat here, so feel free to read.
I can't. If anybody's speaking, I cannot hear them. 1 second. Turn this back on. I think
Can you hear me now?
Give that a shot. There we go.
Testing.
Yeah, I can hear that.
I was giving you so much
desktop
praise.
speakers didn't turn on. Cool.
I was just saying such a great job, and you'll have to check the chat out because we were all in it and losing our minds. And
nice. Oh, good.
Question wise, if few people have their hands up here, I'm not sure who is first. I see Bill at the top of my screen. So Bill, why don't you take it away with a question?
Sure. Yeah. The great demo and great presentation. I like the focus on everything before, like all the planning that you did around thinking about how it was going to work and how you were tying that into the TDD and stuff like that. The tools that like I haven't used Flutter and stuff before. Like I've done a bunch of older school, iOS development and stuff, but the tests that you were writing, were they mostly like unit tests, or did you get into writing some like UI driven, like click this button and make sure something happens on the screen type tests?
Awesome question. Yeah, kind of a batch. Again, because it was such a short turnaround, I didn't have as much sort of test coverage or test involvement as I wanted, but I got at least a few unit tests in. I got a few integration tests, mostly through the, like you say, like through the, oh yeah, these ones are still yellow. So integration, essentially in the Flutter testing context, integration is your end-to-end tests, like your actual UI based tests, and then widget tests have the capability to test directly through individual pieces of the UI. So it has the ability to just, similar to like if anybody's used Enzyme before, or there are other kind of test contexts and test frameworks where it'll sort of simulate simulate just a part of your application, one component, as though it's part of a UI without loading up like all the other stuff, the database and like the entire application. This is that when you do widget tests for Flutter.
Cool. Yeah, great stuff. Thanks a lot. Also, I think you need to check your email.
I knew somebody would see that. So much. Eventually, it's a river, and I dip my toe in, and I pluck the leaves out as they come, and then I just let the river. I get specific notifications for actual important emails. A lot of that is spam. Yeah.
Given some of us some anxiety there, Rick, I don't think I could handle that, but
Yeah.
I know we have a couple more questions and we're a bit over time. So I want to just take maybe one more question and then someone else can put theirs in the chat so we could, make sure people respected the time of everyone.
Absolutely.
Can Rick go for it? And if Barry, you want to throw yours in the chat, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I'll ask on the platform.
Perfect.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, so I just put I really like the approach that you took. I was wondering if you also took into consideration like the like capturing like the audio itself and then running it through like some kind of like machine learning algorithm, like to do the text to speech that way. I don't know if like that was a part of your consideration for that. And like, what was your thought process for that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely thought about that, because that's one of the downsides with the modules that are available on the devices now. Like the packages that are available to hook into the device's speech to text. Like for example, this one uses the iOS one, so it gets its data back and forth from Apple's servers. It's kind of part of the Siri system. But it's a separate component, and it trains itself on, and that's the downside of it. It trains constantly. It has so much training data, but it's training on just human speech in general, not on specific people. And I've used stuff before like drag and dictate, where you train it yourself over time. But doing that, you wind up with these huge data files of your own personal training data, whereas with this, the data file is all hidden away in the cloud on Apple servers, basically. So yeah, if I did that, and I kind of would like to, I would have to sort of write it all sort of from scratch at the device level, because this feature on the devices that are available don't currently train on human voices. So I'd have to kind of write it from scratch. And then I'd have to also find a way to deal with all that training data, and like find some way to be kicking that back and forth to its own server, instead of just like hijacking Apple servers. Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Well, thanks so much, Rick, for taking the time to share this with us. Such a great idea and such an awesome demo too. For anyone who didn't get to ask a question, who has one, definitely pop over to Rick's project on the platform. Rick, you've done an awesome job of putting updates on there. So looking forward to reading some more updates there too.
Nice.
Yeah, let us know how Jeff for sure.
The next big thing I want to do is make the scrolling a lot smoother. Like that's one thing that's bugging me now, is I put a lot of thought into how the text would be delivered, and it just had to sweep all that off the desk basically like at 1 a.m. last night because of the way I could and couldn't access the underlying system. So it has timed out on me again, so it's paused. But yeah, it just kind of jerks up the page now, but I want to make it smoother.
Yeah, you'll have to come and present at the next Hop demo too, and show us the latest updates. And also at the next demo too, I think we're going to have Andrew also present kind of a Hop update. I know that he's been working more on the client side of his app and using TypeScript because he's going to be using that a lot on his pilot too with Unbounce, which is awesome. And yeah, for everyone here, just a quick events update. We have our all hands next week. We're going to have one of our startup partners, Vidyard, who some of you may know, sharing some exciting things that they're up to, along with Juan Carlos, who is an EP, who's done a pilot with them, just wrapping things up and joining them full time. He'll also be sharing too, so don't miss that. Last thing is, when you leave this Zoom room today, you will probably be prompted in your browser to do a quick 3-question survey. So if you could fill that out, that would be so awesome. It's also my first time doing one of those surveys. So if you don't see anything, just send me a Slack. It's a total experiment and test, but really appreciate if you could just fill that out real quick. Thanks everyone for being here today. Thanks so much, Rick, for presenting and sharing. We'll see y'all next week at All Hands. We'll talk to you soon. Bye, gang.
Thanks, guys. See you later.